She stopped answering her phone on a normal afternoon. Her mother walked in and found her on the floor. No forced entry, someone she trusted opened that door. He showed up uninvited and she never called back. Police found his tape matched what was on her body. He planned it for years while living a normal life. Her own trophy was used to end her life. He was already in prison when they finally arrested him. She had a restraining order. He came anyway that day. Her mother always knew and nobody listened until it was too late. The call came in on a Friday afternoon. Not from a stranger. Not from someone who had stumbled across something terrible by accident. It came from a mother. A mother who had walked into her daughter's home because her daughter was not answering her phone, and what she found in that basement bedroom on the floor of a house that showed no signs of forced entry, no signs of robbery, no signs that anything had gone wrong from the outside at all, stopped her completely. The officers who arrived minutes later walked through that front door and understood immediately that this was not random. This was not a break-in gone wrong. This was something a person had planned, something a person had wanted, and that person had been inside this house, had been let in through that front door, and had walked back out again like nothing had happened. What made this case different from the moment investigators arrived was not just the brutality of what had been done to 26-year-old Alexandra Duxay inside her own home on May 19, 2006. It was the silence that followed. No witnesses stepping forward. No obvious suspect standing at the center of the evidence. Just a young woman whose entire life had been building towards something extraordinary, and a man from her past who had decided, quietly and carefully, over the course of years, that he was not going to let her get there. Alexandra Marie Duxay grew up in Milford, Connecticut, the youngest of 3 children and very much the heart of her family. Her 2 older brothers were fiercely protective of her in the way older brothers tend to be when a younger sister has the kind of warmth that draws people in without effort. Alexandra had that quality from the time she was small. She was bright and outgoing and made people feel at ease almost immediately upon meeting her. She was the kind of person who filled a room not by demanding attention but simply by being present in it. From a young age she loved to perform. She sang and danced and put on little shows for anyone who would watch. Not because she needed the applause but because performing was the thing that felt most like herself. As she grew older, that love became something more serious. She competed in dance and stood out not simply because she had talent, which she did, but because she gave everything she had every single time. There was no halfway with Alexandra. When she committed to something, it consumed her completely. After high school, she enrolled at Albertus Magnus College, graduated with strong grades, and stepped into a career as a systems analyst at People's Bank, following a path her father had walked before her. But she was never someone built for a single lane. While working full-time at the bank, she earned her real estate license. She was teaching at a dance academy. She was traveling into New York City regularly for acting and singing and dancing gigs, working with an agent who was helping her push further into the entertainment industry. She was building something, a life that had multiple layers and was expanding in every direction at once. What people who knew her remembered most was not the ambition, though the ambition was real. It was how much she cared about the people around her. She organized charity events. She volunteered. She made time for people no matter how stretched her own schedule was. She was not someone who talked about her generosity. She simply lived it. It was through People's Bank that she met Matthew Pooh. The two fell quickly and hard for each other. He was attentive and generous in the early days, showering her with gifts, at one point giving her a car. For a time, things between them seemed genuinely good. But as Alexandra's life continued to accelerate, more travel, more opportunities, more of herself poured into the career she was chasing, the relationship began to strain under the weight of two people moving in different directions. They ended things in January 2004. By all accounts, the breakup was handled as cleanly as these things can be handled. Alexandra moved forward. She kept working. She kept building. She had no reason to believe the chapter with Matthew was anything other than finished. She had no reason to believe he had already decided it was not. On May 19, 2006, Alexandra and a close friend spent the morning at the gym together. They worked out for roughly an hour before her friend left. Alexandra stayed a little longer. The plan for the rest of the day was straightforward: go home, shower, then handle some errands and work obligations she had lined up for the evening. When her friend tried calling around for her in the afternoon and got no answer, something felt immediately wrong. Alexandra was never unreachable. Her work as a performer meant her phone was always with her, always on, because her agent could call at any moment. Not picking up was not something she did. 30 minutes later, Alexandra's mother Linda pulled up to the house on her own. The first thing she noticed was the dog on the front porch, alone. Alexandra's car was in the driveway. The doors to the house were unlocked. Linda knew her daughter. She knew this was not right. She went inside and called out. No response. Then she saw the stains on the floor and felt the bottom drop out of her world. She made her way to the basement bedroom, and when the room came into view, she understood that there was no explanation that was going to make this better. Her daughter was on the floor. Alexandra Duxay, 26 years old, was gone. The person who found her was her own mother. Police arrived and read the scene immediately. No forced entry. No valuables taken. Clothes scattered across the floor, but nothing missing that would suggest robbery. This was targeted. This was personal. The level of violence spoke to someone carrying an enormous amount of rage, directed specifically at Alexandra. Investigators recovered one of the weapons used in the attack and noted that another appeared to be missing, believed to be a trophy Alexandra had won through her years of dance competition. The thought of it was almost unbearable. Something she had earned through talent and dedication and sheer hard work, used against her in her own home. There was also evidence that someone had attempted to clean up before leaving. It was rushed and incomplete. Whoever had done it was in a hurry, but it confirmed that the attacker had thought enough ahead to try to erase what they had done. A forensic team processed the scene and found a strand of hair that did not belong to Alexandra. It was not enough on its own to identify a suspect, but it was something. Investigators began with the people closest to her. Her best friend Nicole, the same woman who had been with her at the gym that morning, told police about Alexandra's past relationship with Matthew and about a new man she had recently started seeing, someone named Jason who she had met at work. Jason was brought in quickly. He described speaking with Alexandra by phone around noon on the day she died. Their conversation had been normal, easy, until someone rang her doorbell. Alexandra got up to answer it and came back to the phone changed. Her former boyfriend of 6 years, Matthew Pooh, was standing at her door. She had not been expecting him. Jason could hear the surprise in her voice and something underneath it that made him uneasy. Alexandra told Jason she would call him back and ended the call. Jason tried again 15 minutes later, and she picked up a couple of hours after that. Around 4 in the afternoon, he called again. She did not answer. She never answered again. For investigators, the timeline was beginning to take shape. Matthew had shown up at Alexandra's home uninvited sometime around noon. The attack had occurred somewhere in the window between 12:30 and 4:30 that afternoon. Matthew had been the last known person to see Alexandra alive. Police located Matthew quickly. He was married now, working 2 jobs, living what looked from the outside like a settled life. When officers told him about Alexandra's death, he appeared confused. When they asked where he had been that afternoon, he said he had left work early to visit a sick relative. There was no alibi. When investigators spoke to his employer, the times Matthew had given them did not match what his boss described. Matthew had left much earlier than he claimed. He had been lying to police from the first conversation. A search warrant was executed on his home. The search did not produce much except one thing: a roll of duct tape. Because what had not been publicly released was that fragments of duct tape had been found on Alexandra's body. Testing confirmed that the tape at Matthew's house matched what had been found at the scene. And yet, even with this, investigators did not yet have enough to make an arrest. The DNA recovered from the scene, unidentified male DNA, could not be fully profiled from the sample available. Every door they pushed open seemed to close just as quickly. Then Matthew's brother came forward. The two had been close once, in the way people who share the worst parts of their lives together become close. They had both been involved in illegal activity. Both had been arrested and served time. But after their respective releases in 2005 and 2006, Matthew had turned on his own brother, set him up according to the brother's account, in a way that had caused serious and lasting damage to his life. The falling out between them was severe enough that the brother decided he was done protecting Matthew from the consequences of what he had done. What the brother told police was methodical and chilling. Matthew had not simply snapped on May 19, 2006, he had been planning it. After the breakup, he had become obsessed, tracking Alexandra's movements, monitoring her life, voicing to his brother his desire to seriously harm her. He had spoken about wanting to make the attack look accidental, something random that would not point back to him. Then he found out Alexandra had moved on and was seeing someone new. That information changed something in him. The plan intensified. The intention became something darker and more deliberate. He stole duct tape and gloves from his workplace in advance. He chose the day. He drove to her house knowing exactly what he intended to do when she opened the door. Cell phone tower data, initially reviewed without result, was re-examined and confirmed. Matthew's phone had pinged off a tower in the Milford area both before and after noon on May 19th, placing him exactly where Jason's account said he had been. A neighbor came forward and described seeing a man outside Alexandra's home that afternoon driving a vehicle that matched Matthew's car. Piece by piece, across 6 years of investigation, the case against Matthew Pooh was assembled. He was arrested in August 2012. At the time, he was already incarcerated, serving time for attacking a woman with a firearm during a robbery attempt in 2008. The pattern had never actually stopped. It had simply found different targets. Trial began in February 2015. Matthew maintained his innocence throughout. His timeline fell apart under questioning. His brother's testimony laid out the planning and the obsession in detail that the jury could not dismiss. 3 days of deliberation, then a verdict. Guilty on all charges. Matthew Pooh was sentenced to 60 years for the murder of Alexandra Duxay, with an additional 20 years for the break-in, 80 years total for walking through the door of a woman who had done nothing to deserve what was waiting on the other side of that decision. Alexandra's family was present for every moment of it. Their victim impact statements were not performances. They were the real thing. The weight of 6 years of grief and waiting and fury finally spoken aloud in a courtroom to the man who had taken a daughter, a sister, a friend, and swallowed her entire future whole. Alexandra Duxay was 26 years old. She was a dancer, an actress, a singer, a systems analyst, a real estate agent, a volunteer, a daughter who made her mother proud and her brothers protective and her friends feel like they were the most important people in the room. She was building something. She was almost there. And the only thing that stopped her was a man who had decided, somewhere in the darkest part of himself, that if she was going to live her life without him in it, she was not going to live it at all. He was wrong about everything else. But he was right about one thing. He had planned to get away with it. For 6 years, it almost looked like he had.